Hey guys, welcome back. Not So here. I'm going to talk about part two of the UFC menu. Today we're going to talk about the radio submenu and how to manipulate all of the different radios and how it's going to work in the Strike Eagle. So in the last tutorial we talked about the overall UFC, so just a brief refresh. Obviously the buttons down the side, push button 1 through 5. 6 through 10 up here, and then the bottom two of these rows are reserved strictly for the radios, and then in the center is the scratch pad. The radio still occupies the far left and far right corner of the scratch pad, with the area in between as the way that you enter data. So in this Strike Eagle, we've got two radios currently. Possibility of adding more as we get more documentation, but right now it's got the two radios. Radio number 1 is the old standard ARC. I believe it's an ARC 184. It's the UHF only radio that I grew up on all the way from the very beginning. And then later on, in the mid 2000s, they added a second radio. They replaced the Radio 2 was the same UHF only, but they replaced it with the ARC 210 with the VHF UHF capability. And this was kind of a real-time, wartime urgent need, because we were finding ourselves in the AOR that we were not able to talk to certain people when we were limited to UHF only. So they added the VHF radio, and then later on they added a third radio that had the SATCOM capability. But right now we're going to talk about the two different radios. So let's talk about the top level radio. So again, Radio 1's on the left, Radio 2's on the right. Radio 2 is the UHF, VHF, UHF only on the left. So on the radio, you can see that there's a option for a manual preset. For a manual entry, as well as the channelized 1 through 20. The way you swap these around is on the UHF keypad. If you look up here in the two upper left, upper right buttons, you can see the C/M. This means channel/manual key, and the shifted function is the guard receive key on both of those. As you can see, I'll talk about the guard here in a little bit. But the way you can switch from the manual freak to the channel is simply by pushing that button, and you can see now the asterisk jumps down from the manual down to the channelized. Same thing here. I can go back and forth, and it's simply just bouncing the asterisks between the channel and manual. So I can have, let's say, channel on Radio 1 and manual on Radio 2, and whatever is in this manual freak I'm going to be able to talk to on the radio, and then whatever is in channel 1 program is what I'm going to be able to talk to on Radio 1. So the way you change these, let's talk about the manual entry first, just like we talked about on the first UFC in terms of scratch pad entry. If I want to change this manual frequency, I can do that through the scratch pad. So remember, it's UHF only. So let's say we're going to enter 246.9. And just like we talked about, you do not have to enter the decimal point. It's smart enough to know that it's going to enter the decimal there. So it's going to go 246.900. Notice I also didn't have to do the trailing zeros as well as the decimal point. And then I can clear that out. And then notice when I do add that in, it keeps the old manual frequency in the scratch pad. And that's an ability to jump back. So if I, let's say I fat fingered the wrong radio, I tried to talk to whoever I was going to talk to and nobody was there, and I go, oh damn, I did the wrong radio. I can just hit the button again. The previous radio freak goes in. I can go back and talk to these guys and go, hey, give me the correct frequency again. And then I can add it. So if I wanted to re-add a new one, let's say it's 24695, then I can do that and add it. And if that turns out to be the right one, then I can clear that out and everything's good. Realize that I'm not actually talking on the manual freak unless I change this, and that's telling me that's now the active radio. Same thing over here. If I want to change the Victor freak, let's say I want to put in 1257. For whatever reason, then whack, that goes in. Same thing, it keeps the old frequency in there, and I can do that. Notice it says Victor. That tells me that that's my Victor freak. I can also add in a UHF freak. So 364.7, and then notice that will change, and it will tell you that you're on a uniform freak. It's pretty obvious between the two, but it will tell you, unlike this one, that's obviously uniform only there. So that's how you change radios. You can change back and forth. And then like I talked about, if I want to listen to guard, I use the shifted function. So I go guard, and then notice that we'll put a G next to that, and that's telling me that I'm listening to guard on the UHF freak. I can do the same here. So shift guard, and then that will put the G there. So I'm listening to guard on both radios. Not really sure why you'd want to do it, but you could do that as well. And even if I go to even if I go to channel, I'm still listening to guard on that radio because guard is still in the setting. So the guard has nothing to do with the frequency that's set. You're basically listening, and you're transmitting and listening on channel 1 and channel 1 here, but you're listening to guard on whatever that radio is, regardless of what the frequency is. So now let's go ahead and jump into the submenu. So I can push this button, and now I go into Radio 1 submenu, and it'll tell you right there that's Radio 1, and it'll tell you that I'm listening to channel 1 on that. Now, if I want to go in and edit stuff, I can go to a different channel. So let's say I want to go in and look at channel 10. It tells me channel 10 is set to 262.0. If I were to change channel 10 down here, and then if I wanted to, I could actually go in and edit that and put a different frequency married up to channel 10. So let's say I want to go 357. Again, I don't need the zeros or the decimal, and it will put that in there. And now channel 10 is now the frequency married up to channel 10. So if I wanted to go channel 10, I can put that in up here, and that's how I monitor that. So that's how I do the channels. One thing I forgot to talk about is if I wanted to change the channel down here, I can use the rotary knob on both sides. So I can just kind of rotary 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the way up through 20, and then it goes back to guard, and it just basically starts over again. I can go the other way, all the way through 1. Through guard, and this time if I select guard here, I'm now listening and transmitting on guard, whereas this is just a receive only, just a monitor guard. So if I wanted to talk on guard, I would actually check the channel. The other way to do it is I can actually type in the scratch pad. Let's say I wanted to go to channel 14, type in 14 on the scratch pad. Now I just push the little knob, and now that allows me to select channel 14 without having to go through the all the stuff. Same thing over here. If I wanted to say select channel 11, I can just type it in, push it, and now channel 11 is in the freak. So going back into the submenu again, that allows me to monitor and then also edit whatever the frequency is. I've also got the KY58. This is the secure radio. Going in here, but realize in DCS there is no secure radio, so this really is not going to have any function in DCS. I can go into Radio 2, and again that's tells me right here that I'm in the Radio 2 submenu. I'm currently on channel 11, and that is the VHF freak. Again, I can change channel 11 to a UHF frequency if I wanted to, so I could put in let's say 356.85. And then that way I can program, and now channel 11 is now a UHF freak. Okay, and then everything is the same. So this is the KY for Radio 2, but again in DCS that's not going to have any utility. Not sure what the plan for that is, if we're going to replicate some of the manual setup, but probably not at this point. So let's go back out of that, and we'll go back into Radio 2. You can change the AJ is the anti-jam program. Again, no real utility for half quick in DCS, at least at this time. I would assume that if that ever got implemented in DCS, then obviously Razband would probably set that up. So that is the radio in a nutshell. Hopefully that makes sense. Just remember you have the ability to do a manual freak or a channel freak. Again, you're just going to switch it with these buttons, and then I can deselect guard if I don't want to listen to guard chattering off. Notice when I go shift guard receive again, it deselects that, shift guard receive again, and that takes the G away. Now I'm not listening to guard on either radio. Usually the norm was to put guard up, at least monitor in one of the radios. So if somebody starts talking on guard, you can at least hear it, and you can do that. Again, if you wanted to listen to guard, you could, or actually, I'm sorry, if you wanted to transmit on guard, you could do one of two ways. You could either scroll down here to guard, and then select this, and now you're talking on guard on one, or I can do guard in whatever radio, so 243.0. And then I can put that in there and then choose the manual freak, and now I'm talking on guard. So those are just two different ways to get to the same end state. So hopefully that made sense. That's the radio, and I will do part 3 is planned for the steer point submenu. We'll go into the details of how you change all that, how you edit steer points and whatnot. So that'll be part 3 of the UFC menu. All right, guys, Natso's out. Hopefully that made all sense, and happy to answer questions in the Razbam Discord. See you guys.